Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned to my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced, get happy with Dr. Marissa every Friday at drive time prime time on my CNBC NBC News radio channel KCAA. That's AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere, all the time, on demand streaming on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, too many names to list, but you just go and get happy with me because that's what this show's about. It's about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no trying to trick people with trick questions because there's so much bad news out there right now. It's my job, my personal mission, to balance out all the bad news and find out what is right with the world, what is right with you, and what is right with everybody around you. So if you missed any of my 465 consecutive weeks on the air, today is 466. Because I just hate what I do, as you can tell. And if you missed any of the shows, anywhere from Fran Drescher, not talking about the nanny, but talking about how to reduce your risk of cancer, to vegan Chris Wark, who healed his own stage 3, stage 4 cancer, vegan, to Corey Feldman, who's gone through quite a bit, and to beloved Dawn Wells, Marianne from Gilligan's Island, who was on here for 5 times. She is forever in our hearts. And if you missed any of those shows, please go to the my YouTube channel, Dr. Marissa, and you can get all of those past shows as well as my red carpet interviews with Halle Berry and John Travolta and my favorite Quincy Jones. Then please do go and find that. Today is a special day. Today is it's a difficult day because this is not something that people are really comfortable talking about, but because of that, and because people are not just standing by anymore, because of that, one of my favorite sayings is, what you permit, you promote. So because of that, we have a month. April is officially SAAM month, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I have the perfect guest to help mark that occasion today. Her name is Diana, and I'd like you to welcome her to the studio. And Diana is going to help me today talk about something that is not easy to talk about, which is sexual abuse by priests. And I'm grateful to her counsel, Forrest Haney, for reaching out to me. And of course, I wanted to give this a platform. So welcome to the show, Diana. Oh, guess what? Hold on one second. After all that trouble. There we go.
I was just thanking you, Dr. Marissa, for inviting me on your show today. It's a true honor, especially because it is that Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Let's kick it off with talking about a difficult topic.
Yes, absolutely. And I applaud your bravery. And don't forget to remind me, I'm giving you an award, but you have to wait to the end of the show. But all right, let's put the moose on the table, which is my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. Just a reminder, if there are youngins in the audience, this is probably not the show for them. This is an adult show, but it is also a very, very, very important show. So I'm going to give you some statistics to start, which were kind of shocking to me. Thank you, Diana, for providing them. Women, so How many women and men experience sexual abuse? That number is 1 out of 4. That's 1 out of 4, which is just shocking to me. On the other hand, it's really not shocking because 7 out of 10 of us have been abused as children. So in that sense, it's not that shocking. I'm one of that 7 out of 10. So at what age? Women survivors tend to disclose abuse not until 52. So that's the average age, is what I'm guessing, of the disclosure, which makes laws that have a statute of limitations kind of useless, because if you make it for when you're young and you're not ready to talk about it, or you cannot talk about it, and we're going to get into that with Diana, it's useless. And then 91% of perpetrators are someone that the family is familiar with, not a stranger. So that I wanted to use as the statistical backdrop to Diana's story. And we're just going to take a deep breath in right now. And just connect. Beautiful, through breath. And I want you to take me back to the beginning and take me back to growing up, where you grew up, and as much as you can share with us.
Well, sure. I think my history is a little bit interesting. I was born and raised in a border town, so we were less than a mile from Mexico. We had the best of both cultures. Our town is small, and it's almost where everyone knows someone else of someone else's family. So, we're known to each other. The village I came from is super small. We used to be a mining community years ago, and it seems like it's a great place to raise children. Families stick around for a long time. My family moved in probably a couple of years before I was born. But in any case, it's a very impoverished area, and the primary population there is Mexican American people. So I was having a really normal childhood. We spoke both English and Spanish in the home, but I was very excited to go to school when I was 5. At the time, I had 2 parents in the home. I had a mom and a dad, and I had 2 sisters, one older and one younger. And we were Catholic, so most of us went to the parish in our village there. Our village is big enough that we have a fire department, some little teeny general stores, the religious education center, which is small, and our parish. So we attended that regularly as children. In fact, it was required, at least in my household, to attend Mass every Sunday. While we were there was a very well-known priest in the community. He was very well liked, very popular, spoke Spanish, so he got extra points from a lot of people because he could actually communicate with us in our language. And he was just a likable guy. What I didn't know at the time was that I was being groomed. In public, it would be things like chasing and tickling. He was extra playful. At least with me, I never saw this conduct with other children, but I knew that I was getting attention, and I loved it. He was playful.
How old were you at this time?
I believe I was 5, between 5 and 7, but I was really little and young, and had enough supervision, but had enough freedom to kind of roam around our neighborhood and play. And so that's what I did. This priest somehow developed some kind of rotation schedule to have dinner in parishioners' homes. My mother later told me that was to save the parish money. Somehow that maybe hosting him for dinner at somebody else's house, I don't know how frequent that was, but that would save the parish from some of his food bills. So he did. He came for dinner, and we were all excited. It was an honor to be selected and to be on that rotation schedule. It was a big deal. We were proud of that. And during that time is when my sexual abuse occurred. We started out with our playful banter where it was chasing and tickling, and I was squealing in happiness. And somehow that we ended up in the bedroom that I shared with my two sisters. And at that point, he took me onto his lap, covered me, and molested me. At the time, I was frozen. I was frightened. I didn't know what was really happening to me. But I knew uh, not to tell. I was just, frozen. I didn't know what to do. Um, and
So let
thinking,
me just, let me
Mhm.
just for a second. I am so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah,
Your child, I
yeah.
can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
I
So
think.
but you
Oh, go
you
ahead.
you knew this was weird, right?
I
But
did.
5 or 6 year old to understand what to do, asking a 5 to 6 year old. So I'm pausing on this because there are some who don't understand or refuse to understand or are hashtag justifiably ignorant in understanding why children don't say anything. So I wanted just to pause. And if you're listening, if you're one of those people who are extremely judgmental about this, I hope that you hear this, that this is, Diana is not a child who doesn't have attention. She has attention. She has a good home. She's a happy child. And then boom, this happens.
It was based on a trusting relationship of the person who would take care of us all. This priest is really positioned to take place of our version of Jesus. He's funneling Jesus through him. So I was threatened. I was told that either I would be killed or my family would be killed should I ever tell. I also knew that, being raised, I was not really allowed to speak for myself and to spoke when not spoken to. So we had a culture of silence already, and then we have the threat. So I didn't tell, but immediately my behavior problems began, and they lasted for years. Things like nightmares. I had night terrors every night. I was deathly afraid of the dark. I uh, threw tantrums and, just misbehaved. And back then, I don't think anyone was really aware that those were signals of distress. So that carried on. At the time, I was also attending religious education in our little neighborhood. After school, all the girls would walk over, and boys too, to the catechism center to have a class. So it was a weekly thing. And there, I was accosted by the teacher, um, who often would just pull me aside or point me out, saying that she knew I had sinned, she knew what I had done, and if I ever did it again, I would be sure to go to hell, and that I should watch for the devil because of what I had done. And I just became frightened with that. I did relay that to my mother, but again, nobody knew the context of why that was being said. I don't even know if she knew or not. I assume that she was aware of the abuse.
She was aware of the abuse, and that was her response. Are you
Yes.
fucking kidding me?
No, not kidding. And
You know this person too? Like she
well, I don't remember her name and I don't remember her position. I certainly remember her clothing and her face and her stature. She was a short, stout woman. Um, on the older side, I doubt that she'd be alive today. Um, but I
okay.
don't know her position, within the church. I don't know if she was a sister or just a parishioner with extra time. But those classes became very difficult for me to attend, and it was still required. I had to go. I had no choice.
Okay.
I think,
So let's
sometimes
take a quick
parents.
break.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. If you've just tuned in and you're wondering who I have on my show today in my virtual studio, I have a beautiful woman named Diana who's brave enough to come and help me kick off April Sexual Assault Awareness Month with her own experience, her own story of what happened to her that has led her now to speak up for herself and take on the Tucson Diocese, and we'll learn more about that later. But we're going back in a very sensitive time when all of this happened. So I just wanted to say that I wanted to also just, when you did tell your mother, not about the context, but did tell your mother about this woman who was after you, right? Mm-hmm. What was the response? I mean, tell me that your parents at least said, is there something going on with these behavioral things? Like, was there a, don't ask them to, I don't understand.
Dr. Marissa, back then, I had already been labeled as a troublesome child, not a troubled child, but a troublesome child. And those fears, I don't think anyone really noticed that they were pathological, that the nightmares were really a deeper issue. I was never asked. I was just made to behave, and that was considered misbehaving in my family. So I learned very early on that I really had no say-so with my own life, my own body, where I went, who I had to be with, whether or not they were dangerous. I really felt at that time I had no choice. Mm-hmm. So, this went on for some time, and I eventually made my first Holy Communion and went to church as often as I was forced to throughout the years.
The abuse continued?
No, it did not continue. It was that incident in my home. So abuse did not continue. I just continued to live my life, and I never told.
With this secret, this horrible, threatening, demoralizing, shaming secret.
And I believed the catechism teacher with my whole being. I believed that she had the power to kill and to bring the devil on. And as a child, I learned just to maybe not be so scared, but to expect it. So every night, I'd be kind of looking out for that. It was a very difficult time for me. And those behaviors really persisted through my young adult life. I continued to be frightened of the dark. I would mask it the best I could. I quit eventually having the night terrors. But it's interesting because once I began to come to terms with the abuse as an adult, I was 48 by then, the night terrors returned as if there were no break in between. They were just the same and just as frightening as they were in childhood.
So take me around that. So it happened at 5 to 7, and then basically 4 decades, you kept silent, kept the secret, was the bad child, didn't want to say anything, could not say anything, kind of stuffed it down, right, is my guess. And then what happened? What happened that triggered that?
Well, I've had some turbulence throughout my life, always, I think, related to that, that early drinking alcohol, breaking the law in that way, being risky, engaging in risky behaviors. But this time, in 2010, I think it was roughly 2010, I was in a session with a therapist just for feeling kind of off center, off balance. And she asked me if my father had sexually abused me. And I said, no. If anything, it was a priest. But that verbalization wasn't enough to get me into treatment or to start really disclosing. So I just shut it down again and went on with my life. But in 2018, I was triggered by the Kavanaugh hearing. Remember how Brett Kavanaugh was accused of sexually assaulting a woman in his high school years. I streamed that hearing, and eventually it seemed as if Christine Blasey Ford was kind of justifying her innocence, and that people assumed she was lying. And I kept saying to myself, well, I know she's not lying. Who lies about this? I didn't lie. And at that point, the trauma returned full force. I couldn't get rid of it. I remembered everything, and I started to disintegrate. It was a really quick thing, and this time I just couldn't hold it back for whatever reason. I was 48 at the time.
Married
I was in a
children.
good place, married with children, have a great career, and yeah, it just threw me off. So I stayed silent for a couple of months. Eventually made an appointment with a therapist because I knew I couldn't get through this alone, and I disclosed to my sister what had happened, and she remembers that time frame. She remembers that dinner. She just does not remember me being isolated or sitting on his lap in our bedroom, but she was present, and she was aware that he had special like for me, I suppose. He targeted me for play, not her. I think it was just the type of child I was. I don't really know. But after that, therapy became a big part of my life. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And at this point, I do want to give you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award because of what you're going to tell us more. I think the fact that some people could have done this and said, okay, now I've dealt with it and we're done. But you have gone one step further, and that is the case that you're involved in now. So tell me about that case.
Well, I won't go into the whole case about it.
Yeah, but what are
Um,
you doing now?
but
What?
I am part of a racketeering lawsuit that has been filed against the Diocese of Tucson, as well as the Diocese of Los Angeles, and the seminary school there, called St. John's, on the basis that priests may have been, we suspect they were moved around and covered up with known perpetration history. So I'm part of that now, and I felt like I was at the point where I was ready to really end the secret that I had from friends, from other people I hadn't told. I had been attending some support groups through the survivor network of those abused by priests, also known as SNAP. So that also became a regular regimen for me. At first, those meetings were frightening. I didn't know how I was going to be, but eventually I did have this great support system that I still have. And I think those people and their stories inspired me to do something to change or help this horrible thing, because many just don't have that type of resource to do that. So I felt like I was being called upon to do that for others.
Yeah, and for that, I'm giving you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award, which I don't give to all of my guests. Truly, 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 Diana, the fact that you don't have to do this, you don't have to surface this, but I hear the personal, this isn't about, I don't think, a revenge. This is about protecting kids from any future possible, it's one thing that this idiot is allowed to serve. That's already, can't believe he's continuing, right? He's still doing,
Correct.
yeah.
From what I understand, to my knowledge, he's still able to minister. He is retired and apparently on contract, so maybe he's not there as frequently, but he still has those privileges to do that. And I figured he's still alive, and I would like some accountability for the abuse that I suffered. Coming forward certainly wasn't easy for me, for my mother, for my family. But I felt like this was a time to possibly search for other victims of the same priest, and or just demonstrate how coming forward is is a good thing to do, if you can. To any other survivors, I would say healing takes time and a lot of work, but I've really, during this path, I've achieved a lot more together with support systems than I would have ever done silently alone. So I really praise all of those people who are involved in my life who helped me through the roughest of times. It got very dark, and I think a lot of survivors feel that way at some point. There's a higher risk for suicide of survivors of childhood sexual abuse. There's a higher incidence of disease, of physical disease, as well as mental illness. And so I just didn't want to keep that quiet anymore. My best regimen was to talk about it, to take medication, and to attend therapy. All those things together have gotten me to a place that I'm still coping, of course, with this. I always will, but it made my progression in life just that much more meaningful. So
Absolutely.
I just hope we can prevent even one child from being molested, because that's a lifelong damage being done to not only your body, but your psyche, your emotional health, your psychological health. It is devastating then. And if you grow up with that, it's devastating as an adult.
Yes. And then I think that a couple important things I wanted to highlight that you just said. One is, you did nothing wrong. So that secret and the shame that others who may be listening to this are also holding in their soul, I hope you hear from there is not one iota of anything that is to be ashamed of. You did nothing wrong. And even if you haven't come forward, you've done nothing wrong. But what I'm hearing and what I know myself is when I started talking about my own abuse on a Women's History Month all over Fox, Washington, D.C., it was like this giant, I'm not writing this book about happiness because I'm a psychologist that wants you to be happy. I'm writing this book just because I was beaten as a child. And I can remember, saying it out loud and my first thing, oh, crap. I hope my mother doesn't hear this, but the freedom, and that I think I want to highlight is you're offering by your example and, being represented by Forrest Hain in this public, bringing to the light this darkness, an opportunity for women or men who have similarly shove down this shame that is not yours to hold. It is not your shame. You've done nothing wrong. But because there's that feeling of it, you cannot heal. And so that's the part where I was excited that you agreed to come on, because it's multi-pronged. It's not just coming forward because you want justice. That is definitely true. It's not coming forward just for helping other children, but for the individual. I am such a huge personal cheerleader for dealing with pain fully, not shoving it down anymore, dealing with it fully, recognizing that you're not going to die from dealing with it, which is what you have so beautifully shared with us. So sorry, that was my.
No, thank you, Dr. Marissa. I think your disclosure is also inspirational to survivors, really, of any type of significant trauma. We do carry that. For a long time, I was ashamed, and I felt like if I could just go back in time, I would do things differently. And then I realized I was a child. I had no control over somebody else's actions. So it takes a long time to get there, but I feel like the boulder I was carrying, it really felt like a heavy burden to keep that secret, is being lifted. And I feel myself becoming a little back to normal to some degree, because I had, I had cognitive issues as a result of dealing with this. I was not able to sleep. Physiological things were happening within my body as a result of dealing with the trauma. It's definitely not easy, but now it's just been the best thing for me. And I do hope people do think about that a little bit more.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a quick little break. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced, get happy with Dr. Marissa, my weekly show about hope and happiness, because everyone deserves to claim their birthright of being happy 88% of the time. And we're just going to take a minute to thank the sponsors who make this show possible. We'll be back at you in two. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace.
Dr. Marissa here, ready to drive a car that was designed with you in mind? Using patented technology, Mazda is focused on creating a human-centric vehicle, and Capistrano Mazda is ready to put you in the driver's seat. Family-owned and operated, Capistrano Mazda gives you a mileage guarantee. When you buy your new Mazda, you become part of their family. So visit capomazda.com today like I did, and now I can't stop smiling with my fabulous new Mazda MX-5 convertible Miata.
And I'd like to invite you to a very appropriate event that I'll be speaking at, the 18th Annual Hawaii International Virtual Summit of IVAT, the Institute for Violence, Abuse, and Trauma. And I'm going to actually put your name up as a speaker for next year. But I get to be one of the keynote speakers. There's still time to register. This is at the end of the month. Unfortunately, I won't get to go to Hawaii again, thanks to COVID. But that's okay. We'll be speaking virtually. So go to ivat.org, IVAT, and get your tickets today. All right, and you're listening to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced, get happy with Dr. Marissa. I am Dr. Marissa, your cheerleader for more hope and happiness, because you have the birthright to be happy 88% of the time. Why 88%? Well, if you're 100%, you're dead. We don't want dead people talking. 8 is a number in Chinese, and 88 is double good fortune, which is your birthright. And we're talking about abuse, sexual abuse in particular. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April, and I have Diana, I almost called you April. I have Diana on the show with me today because she is absolutely one of those who have gone through sexual assault by a priest. And let's go back to now. You have not stated that you've done probably the most loving thing for yourself. I call it pain is mandatory, but suffering is optional. And you have taken your optional suffering and done something with it. And now you have become open with this. You're calling out the individual who did this to you. How has the reaction been with your parents, with your family, your sister, you mentioned earlier, with your friends, with your husband, with your children? I can only imagine what it was, the decision to go forward, and now you're, public knowledge.
Dr. Marissa, it was more difficult anticipating the possible reactions than the support I have received from most everybody. And I think that's what we tend to believe, is that, we're the kind of, I don't know, I always use derogatory words for that, but like we think that the worst of what would happen. And I've had, for every friend that I've told, I think 90% of them said, well, I have a history and I've never told. And we just leave it at that. If they're ever ready, they can definitely talk to me. But I'm really grateful for the support that I've received. My husband has been really a sturdy person to lean on through this whole process. It's been hard on him as well. My mom still lives in our small community, and I worry about her. She will have to deal with the effects of any negativity coming from this. I always anticipate that there might be those folks who don't agree this um, with this, I guess, an outing, my story. So I worried about that a lot, and I was able to handle it, I think, very well, and everybody responded with support. So I anticipated the worst and I got the best.
That's so awesome to hear. And I think that is absolutely, this is as bad as things are right now in the world, and as bad as things feel and look. I'll tell you, I've never been more proud of people saying, no, the buck stops right over here. And I'm not going to be silent anymore. And I'm not going to collude with all the forces that have kept all of this below, sharks under, I call it smooth waters above and sharks below. And the time has come where, no, you're a shark, and you absolutely have to be held accountable for that. And I'm so grateful for the bravery of people like you and all the ones who have come forward and said, #MeToo, all of that. And many of them, and I continue, with Asian Americans now. Our culture is not to stand up and say, hello, right? The best analogy I have is you ask a Chinese carpenter, do you do good work? He'll go, oh, no, right? Because we're not supposed to say anything, but we all have to do this for the sake of our human kindness. It's humankind. So for whatever reason, we've come through the dark ages, literally, in our country, on our planet, with the worst being allowed to continue. Well, the buck stops right here. What we permit, we promote. We are no longer permitting it. So what is your message for anyone who, by the way, is the majority? 7 out of 10 of us gone through childhood abuse. The 1 out of 4 who's had sexual abuse, okay? We're not the minority. The damage does not make us wrong or bad or to be ashamed. The fact that we've had this happen gives us a special, beautiful chiseling into greater and greater good. So there's nothing wrong if you've been abused, if you've been sexually assaulted, there's nothing wrong with you. NOTHING, wrong with you. There's everything right with you. So what do you do now that, okay, I've drunk your Kool-Aid, Dr. Marissa, I've listened to Diana, I'm going to do this for me. What do you do?
Decide what you're going to do with what you have, your feelings, your reactions. Are they maladaptive? If they are, you're not alone. You'll never be alone. You tell one person and it just relieves a lot of that pain and pressure. And there are people to listen. I've sought professional counseling, and I'm very happy I did, because in that environment, I'm encouraged to say anything that I'm feeling, and it's just freeing to do that. You may not think you're ready, but I think the people that you surround yourself with, if they're loving and kind, they'll be ready to support you. So you're not alone, ever, ever. I've never been alone through this whole process. I only have support every step of the way from the best people. I've met so many new people who love me as I am with my past, and they didn't know me from anyone else, but they, treated me very gently through this process, and still do. It still gets difficult.
Sure, absolutely. And it did shape you into the beautiful, wonderful person that you are. So when I work with people who've had abuse, the one question that seems to help the most is, if nothing changed, because we all wish that it would have changed, right? Woulda, shoulda, coulda. We all wish it. But if nothing has changed, did something grow in and develop in you that you are appreciative of? So my guess is, because of what happened to you, you're way more compassionate, you're way more resilient, you're way more sensitive, and sensitive is 100% correlated with creativity. Okay, you're way more protective, you're way more careful, and those are beautiful things.
They are. And I think I was a better parent actually because of that. I spoke to my children when they were itty bitty and talked about their bodies and what was sacred, what is safe, what isn't safe, doctors, how they treat you versus, a coach on a basketball team. And so I think at least for one generation, I stopped the cycle because it's easy to have that go when it's been something, in your life. You view that as normal. So I was much more aware and attentive to them, and I feel like I raised them in an open way where still now they're teenagers, they're nearly grown. I feel like they do approach me with very sensitive subjects, and I'll always be there without judgment.
Yeah, I know. For better, for worse, my kids tell me everything. Sometimes I really want to know that, but I do think that's a good practical thing to walk away with. What do you say to your kids when they're growing up? Especially someone, if you had known, you didn't know. And I'm not blaming your parents. Our parents do the very best that they can, and they do what their parents did. So,
Right.
That's just the way it is. So we can't blame anybody. But what are some words that you did use with your kids that helped in that education? I think that's very helpful.
I think it was just that monsters don't look like monsters. Uh, Somebody who's out to harm you can be very cunning and sweet. And just like my abuser was very well liked, very charismatic, great with children, those are the people that I would kind of make sure they were extra cautious around. And, just trying not to leave them one on one with anyone was just a safe practice. But we did talk about safety versus safe touch versus uncomfortable touch. When I was molested, I didn't know what was happening. I just knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel good. I was out of control. I didn't have control of my body. So I just wanted them to know that anytime they had a feeling, good or bad, just come talk about it and we'll discuss it and decide if it's safe or not safe. So they were never feeling responsible for this big thing of protection. I was, and they knew that, and my husband. So I think that was a practical way that this has helped me. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And the resources, Snap is definitely, I love Snap. I've been a huge fan of theirs. I actually got to interview, what all started and how I found out about Snap was I had a guest who actually went through sessions on the air to heal from his abuse from a priest. And that's how I met Snap. And Chris Schrader is his name, and he continues to do great work. And he's living proof that, like we're only as sick as our secrets. And once that's out and you realize it's not your fault and that it's not okay and people need to be held accountable and you do what you can, that there's a freedom and healing in that. So that's an organization. Can you give other recommendations on where people should go? Let's say someone just goes, okay, I'm ready to talk. Who do I talk to?
My first stop when all this happened was my employee assistance program through my employer. I always knew that human resources would be a great place to start to find providers. And at that point, I remembered, hey, I think there was something about free sessions. So I went through that process and had the ability to select out of a few therapists close to me who I wanted to see. So it was my employee assistance program that got me started. So often your insurance company is a really great place to start. They can tell you who's covered. They can tell you how much it will cost, and they can kind of guide you through that difficult process of finding somebody if you just can't do it yourself. It can be very difficult to do. There's also a resource that I've gotten to know, and I go to it quite often, and it's called bishopaccountability.org. This is a website that lists perpetrators. Unfortunately, it has hundreds and hundreds of perpetrators listed, details about where they served, the nature about what they have done, and their status as far as living or deceased. And I I think it's a good resource just because, if you're going to a new center of some sort, you want to possibly check out the list. Or, if you've been going to the Roman Catholic Church for a long time and you want to see who in your state might have been a pedophile and did you cross paths, that's a good place to check. So I think that is another really, really good resource.
Beautiful. So now specifically, and that's what I was saying before, the great thing about this time, as uncomfortable as it may seem, I've seen ads for asking people to come forward from YMCA, from camp. I'm losing the names now, but Cub Scouts, churches, Mormon churches. So if you, I hope that this is enough of a warning sign for anyone who is behaving badly, worse than badly. This is worse than behaving badly, but that you can't do this anymore. You just can't do this, and get help, for God's sakes. So, because I also know that a lot of, not defending them, but the statistics show hurt people hurt people. Abusers are, the majority of sexual abusers have been sexually abused themselves. That doesn't excuse it, but it certainly points to the buck's got to stop somewhere, and we have to have the kind of rehabilitation and the kind of, otherwise it's never going to stop. So that pattern, I'm hoping that this is ours is the generation of pattern interrupt for all of the bad patterns. So for your particular dickwad, sorry, I know that's judgmental, but for your particular person, if you're listening, and the great thing about hashtag COVID silver lining and technology is this will reach all over. So Arizona, I have a lot of listeners in Arizona. So if you're in Arizona, or you were in Mexico, or wherever this person has served, his name is
Charles Knapp. He goes by Charlie Knapp.
So a priest, if you have a priest or had a priest named Charlie Knapp, and you were abused, you were sexually assaulted, and you have, like Diana, up until age 48, not said anything, thinking there's something wrong with you, or this is something you cannot talk about, please talk about it. And in particular, you can reach out to Forrest Hain is what I'm thinking. I don't have a number for them. Maybe Leah, you can provide that. But just in case, you just never know. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. Forrester Haney, and the number is 214-210-2100. I'm going to actually put it on the scroller. You can call or text, because we do want, to strengthen the case against and also the LA Times and the Arizona Star, I believe, did an investigative report that you should read. I mean, this is not just an opinion section. This is an absolute, an investigative journalism, very well done piece that looked into the truth that St. John's, and not just St. John's, would funnel problem priests to Tucson. And that's not okay. And so holding them responsible as well. So if whether you've were molested by this particular priest or any priest, please contact Forrester Haney, and it's info@forresterhaney.com, and their number is 214-210-2100. And I'm going to go for the rest of the session. I'm going to put it down here, the number, and that's Forrest info at Forrester Haney, hopefully I get this right, .com. And show that, see if I got that now. All right, so we covered a lot of ground. How are you feeling?
It's not super comfortable to talk about something so sensitive, but I really want the entities involved to adhere to the policies that they've adopted. It's one thing to say that you're doing certain things to protect children, but it's another to actually follow through with those policies. And that's my hope. And I really appreciate you having me today, Dr. Marissa. It's out there, and I do feel a lot better. And the support I'm receiving is just amazing. It's beyond what I expected. So I'm okay. And most people, if they tell, they'll be okay too.
Yes, beautiful, beautifully said. I just know that this is just the beginning for you. I mean, you have a gift here that you took the pain, you alchemized the pain. You're coming out like Phoenix Rising, which is the name of the conclusion of my book, because that's what pain is for. It alchemizes us. And we definitely know, because we are the majority, that we are in this unique, beautiful situation to help people where other people can't help. They don't know. You know all of the feelings that went on with that. So if you're feeling alone in your secrets, in your shame, in what happened to you, you are not alone. There are so many, the majority, for God's sakes, knows and is now not silent. We're not permitting, we're not promoting. The buck stops right here. We're taking ownership, and we are here to make the world a place where we can be happy 88% of the time. Thank you so much, Diana, for coming.
Thank you.
To the show. Or whoops, go long enough. Truly am blessed to have met you. I hope we stay in touch. Keep me informed what's going on. If I can be of support as well in any way, I do want this topic to be something we can talk comfortably about. It really is not helping that no one wants to talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, it's never going to get fixed. So thank you for being part of the solution, Diana. Thank you, Forrester Haney, for offering Diana for my show. I think this is such an important topic. Again, if you are one of the majority who has had some kind of abuse, 1 out of 4, the quarter of us, a quarter of you that have had sexual assault, then please, 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 don't be silent anymore. Last question for you, which is a question I ask all my guests. And I love this question. It is, to whom and to what, or to what, are you most grateful to or for?
I would say my team of people, because that can include everybody. That includes my strong mother, my supportive sister, my rock of a husband, the organization called SNAP that has been there since day one, my therapist, people like you, Dr. Marissa, who treat us with respect and kindness, and who help us get the word out, as well as Forrester Haney. They've been great.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I accept.
Thank you.
I love applause. The only thing I love more than applause is laughter. And laughter is my cardio for my soul. So blessings to you, blessings to your family, blessings to this case, and take care of yourself. Yes?
You too. Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. And that is it for today's episode. Very important episode of Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get happy, get balanced with Dr. Marissa. Remember that you are loving, lovable, and loved, especially if you've gone through any of the things that we've talked about today. Please keep it tuned. If you just tuned in now and want to rewatch it, please go to my YouTube channel and you will get the entire replay. Also, thank you to all of my sound engineers, Joe, station manager Mark, station owner Fred Lundgren, son and help in Texas Mike Lundgren, for continuing to be my home base for this broadcast. KCAA AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, over 100 nations at www.kcaaradio.com, the station that leaves no listener behind. This is Dr. Marissa. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace.
Well, she has been dubbed the Asian Oprah, and she just wants all of us to be happy.
Dr. Marissa, aka the Asian Oprah, says the most important thing you can choose is choosing to be happy.
You are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa.
That's the idea for Dr. Marissa Pay's new book called 8 Ways to Be Happy.
Many of us say, I am my own worst critic. Nobody's harder on me than I am. And my response to that is, stop it! Why are you doing that to yourself? You have to be your biggest fan, because if you can't at the end of the day say, I did a good job, who is? We don't have to constantly be angry at the things that are wrong. Why don't we choose to be happy about things that are right? We have the choice. That's our muscle. And life is so amazing if we can see it.